there's always going to be profits. There's always going to be problems. By the time a year and a half ago, I just kept on losing money. I was like losing 9,000 a month. When you bleed 9,000 a month, it hurts. I've run into so many problems. Right now, we're doing some development right now, and there's issues and problems like everywhere. There was everything right in that building. Right, there's prostitutes. There was a drug pusher there. I should have put cameras there. And there's a house party that's like it actually got rid of all the good tenants. Right, so be cognizant of what you're getting into. You're buying a business, right? And when you buy a business, you're buying all the problems too.
Problems are what? Problems are profits!
Welcome to the Problems or Profits podcast with your hosts Rebecca Lynn Matheson and Matt McKeever. In today's episode, we're going to be catching up with Kasey Wong. Kasey's a well-known real estate investor across Canada. He's been on my YouTube channel a few times. In fact, he's actually the most popular character on my YouTube channel, even counting myself. So I'm really excited to dive into today's video with Kasey, where we're going to be exploring exactly how he's built up his real estate portfolio, what some of the challenges and problems he's encountered, and how he's made the most of those situations by turning them into profits. So let's jump into Kasey. Kasey, what's the most expensive thing you've ever broken?
That I've broken. Wow. Okay, that's a loaded question. I can start way back when I was a kid. What do you guys want? Like, you guys want to start from like real estate? My kid when?
Yeah, just start with one of the stories, and we're happy to go from there.
All right, it has nothing to do with real estate. Okay.
That's okay.
But I always tell my kids they're about having dinner soon, so hopefully they don't hear this. When I was like literally like 10 years old, 10 or 11, my kid's age, I was playing hockey inside the house. And, you know, it's like you have these orange balls, these street ball for, you know, playing street ball hockey, right? I was learning how to flick the ball and all that. I flicked it up. I hit the chandelier. Okay. It was a crystal chandelier. My mom freaked out, right? But it shattered everywhere. So that was one time, and that's not the only time, because I played again. I didn't learn my lesson, and I had my retainers. I had retainers. I had an underbite. It was terrible. I flicked it up, hit the ceiling, and then smashed my retainers. It was on the it was like literally a shot. It was like bang, $400. I was like, how do you explain that to your parents, right? So I'm not sure if it's problems or profits, right? But the thing is that we all go through that. Like, we literally go through problems, and then it's how do you solve this, right? Like, I have problems when I was a kid. It's like I broke the chandelier, broke the retainers, but you fess up to it, right? Like, how do you explain that to your parents, right? You have to fess up. You say, okay, well, I'm sorry, it's not gonna happen again. It happened again, but still, whatever you guys do is like, especially, I can always relate to real estate or business in general, is that people don't want to hear lies. Right? Your investors don't want to hear stories. They don't want to hear, oh, I did this or I did that and all that. No, it's we made a mistake. I made a mistake, right? Even for my kids, I tell them, hey, this is what I did, and they know the story. But I don't think both stories, but I told one story. But always like, don't hide things and just go. You know, people will find out anyways. And you rather be transparent. Because your investors, the people that you work with, they will appreciate that. So everything can be learned. Like, you can learn everything. You can learn from your mistakes. And honestly, your investors will appreciate it, and they'll come back. Your colleagues, the people that you work with, they'll understand that, you know what, you made a mistake. You fessed up, and you say, okay, well, you know what, shit happens. I made a mistake. This is how I'm going to correct it, right? So hopefully you guys can take that and sort of, you know, use that as you know, sort of training grounds, because everybody needs that.
Absolutely. All right, next warm-up question here for you, Kasey, is you have $1 million in 24 hours. What do you do?
Oh my goodness. $1 million, and after 24 hours it's gone, or what?
It's gone.
It's gone. Well, we always have a lot of debt. To be honest with you, we have good debt. We always have things that we have to pay suppliers and contractors, things like that. But yeah, I can always use $1 million.
No, just go into the operating.
Yeah. So it's either that or you put it onto a building, right? If you're not paying off, contractors or things like that, you can hold a property. If you have things in the pipeline, I can tell you sort of what we're doing right now, but always cash is great. Everybody needs it, especially when you're doing this type of business. There's always debt to pay. There's always suppliers or contractors and things like that. So definitely, I can use $1 million.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Kasey. And then finally, the last question here to warm up is, why are you, or what makes you Kasey Wong?
Wow. Okay. Just be authentic. Like I'm just a regular guy. I'm no special than anybody else. I'm not, I haven't done anything great or whatever. I just, go with the flow. So whoever wants to, achieve things, just like the Rebecca's and the Matt McKeevers and the Kasey Wongs, if you want to do something, just go and do it. It's not, everything's achievable. Okay. We're not rocket science. We're not superheroes. It's actually what we do is, to be honest with you, it's quite easy, right? In a way that, I'm not studying for a medical exam, or I'm not studying for the bar or things like that. I don't have to be, the top of the class. That's what I'm saying, is that I don't have to be the best, right? I don't have to hit a ball 400 feet. I don't have to score goals on an ice rink with NHL players. What we do is what average people can do, right? By finding deals and buying deals, right? It's not difficult. So
awesome. Appreciate that, Kasey. Yeah, no, that's great. And so the first kind of question that I want to jump into with you on the Problems or Profits podcast here is really just because I know your background. We've touched upon it in the past a bit, but I'd love it if you'd be willing to just build upon it a bit more, that time in Hamilton, right? So like, I know that you've kind of explained it once or twice on my YouTube channel, but I'd love if you could just kind of lay it out for us again and, really talk us through what happened and then how you made the best of that situation. And again, sometimes we're not necessarily going to profit from a situation, but we make the best of it.
Yeah. So before I hit Hamilton, I want to sort of give a backstory, the history behind why I hit Hamilton. I had a triplex in downtown Toronto, 896 Dundas Street East, near Dundas and Broadview. It wasn't the best neighborhood. It was an up-and-coming neighborhood. Regent Park was right on the other side of DVP. How I'm getting to this is that a lot of my tenants, they were actually on OW and ODSP. They're actually very good. They paid on time and so on and so forth. Then I hit 4 townhouses. Like after that, the triplex, I hit 4 houses in Barrie and Letitia Heights near Ann Street and Cundles Road. I bought it for like $125. It was cheap. It was $125,000. I think it's worth maybe like $300 or $400. I don't know the value of it now. I still have one house on Burn Circle. And then, going well as well, going fine. Then I hit Kitchener on Chapel Street, 44 to 48 Chapel Street in Kitchener. That was a 10-plex. Then what my mindset was, I've done OW and ODSP rent, I rented to these people. It wasn't that bad. And then I hit Hamilton. I said, oh, wow, the value is amazing. So I bought 821 Main, 827 Main Street, and 959 Main. 821 and 827, there's also another house, building 831 Main Street. That was sort of 3 buildings stuck together. And some of your listeners will probably know about Hamilton. This is near Gage Park. So when I hit that, I go, okay, well, the agent said that, there's a lot of people on welfare. Are you comfortable with that? And I said, yeah, and you know what? That's easy. I've done it before, right? Mm-hmm. So I've done it in my downtown Toronto property, my Dundas property, and I also had a couple of people on assistance in Chapel Street, 44 to 48 Chapel Street. So I thought, okay, well, Hamilton, it's going to be the same. It's easy, right? I was running very smooth with what I have done. Then when I hit Hamilton, that's where the problem was. So I thought it was going to be the same. It wasn't. The people on welfare and ODSP, they would actually rent and then stop payment. They had direct payment, but they went back to their social worker and stopped payment, direct payment to the landlord. And then I basically, when that happens, now they're not paying, they damaged the unit. And then when they moved out, I had to renovate and kept on going. And I go, what's going on? So Hamilton really, it was a bump in the road that I wasn't comfortable with. And I was like, why does this keep happening? Maybe these people are different, and it never happened to me before. So then basically about a year to year and a half, I kept on losing money. My operating cost was pretty high. I think I mentioned that I had steam boilers there. I can dive deep into that if you want, but I had steam boilers there. My property tax is quite high. It was higher than my Toronto and my Kitchener at that time. And then, so obviously my expenses was high, and then I was having issues with rent collection, and then tribunals and so on and so forth. And I thought, these people were good. And then by the time a year and a half ago, I just kept on losing money. I was like losing $9,000 a month. When you bleed $9,000 a month, it hurts. Like, So what I did was, for me to bleed $9,000, I was selling my RSPs. I was selling my non-registered account just to pay for gas, hydro, and property tax, things like that. I never went back to my investors and had a cash call. That's I think it was more prideful for me. I was like, I'm not going to do that. That's something that, for me is a failure, right? So I don't want to show that card, right? I was like, I'm going to do it on my own. By the time that year and a half came, I had to sell. I was like, you know what? I bought it for, one property was $247,000. One was $430,000. One was $299,000. So those are for an 812 and a 8-plex. That was 28 units in Hamilton. And I basically sold it to the amount, almost the same amount that I bought it for. So I bought it for that price. I almost sold it for that price. And all the operating costs each and every month was $9,000. And I just, what I said to my investors, here's their money back. I'm sorry, I screwed up, right? It's something that, you're not proud of, that you screwed up. And then I said, here's your money back, and that's it. Then I just moved on. Like my wife and I had probably about 5 years, or like a holding period. It's like, let's not buy anything. Let's kind of recoup our losses and keep the ones that we have. So what mistakes that I made at the time was not screening the tenants properly. So making sure that if people are on welfare, there's nothing wrong with people on welfare, okay? As long as they have co-signers, right? Because you can't actually go and garnish, like if you have a judgment on them, you can't say, I'm going to garnish your wages, right? Or garnish whatever. You can't garnish that. So assistance is assistance. Like that's welfare and ODSP. You cannot take their money, right? Because everybody has to sort of live, right? So bottom line is that do your checks properly with your tenants. I get co-signers now. And you know what? They're good. If they have co-signers, they actually are great tenants, and they actually stay for a long time. So that's one. Getting all getting co-signers information, like driver's license, SIN. I know that you're not supposed to get SIN, but I still ask that. Things like that, like work documentation, because if you have to garnish the co-signers' wages, you can have that recourse, right? So that was one part of it. So that tenant selection is really important. Another thing is that your building, like I've said this before in my other YouTubes, is that there's hard numbers and there's soft numbers. Okay, what I mean by soft, there's hard analysis and there's hard analysis and there's soft analysis. Excuse me. Your numbers always look good, right? It's like, wow, you're buying it for $247,000 for an 8-plex or $430 for a 12. It's like, that's crazy numbers, right? Look at the building, right? What kind of deferred maintenance? Are you going to put that in your analysis? Are you going to look at the Friday nights and Saturday nights? I call it the soft analysis because nobody sees those. You're gonna park yourself. You're gonna park your ass right there. You're gonna walk around up and down. I've done that. See who hangs around that building. Are there any house parties? Or is there a drug dealer right there? Is there prostitution? There was everything right in that building. Right, there's prostitutes. There was a drug pusher there. I should have put cameras there. And there's a house party that's it actually got rid of all the good tenants, right? So be cognizant of what you're getting into. You're buying a business, right? And when you buy a business, you're buying all the problems too, right? It could be profitable, but you know exactly what you're getting into. So these are things that if you're not comfortable with it, if you're not comfortable in confronting somebody who's a drug pusher, then don't get into it, or get a good property manager. Like I'm comfortable with it. Like I don't mind going to the guy's face and saying, you know what, we have a family here. Can you push your drugs somewhere else? Right? I don't mind saying that. I don't mind saying, hey, yo, you're a prostitute. You know, do your trade somewhere else, right? But just watch your back. Be cognizant of what you're getting into. Be safe in how you conduct yourself. If you're going into these rough neighborhoods, when you're going into like your peripherals are always gonna be pushed, right? I went to Hamilton because it's cheap back then. It was 2005. We're 2021 now, right? So I wish I bought in because my mom started in Greektown. Like it's so expensive at Greektown right now. You're probably looking at a triplex for $1 million, $1.5 million, right? She bought it for 167 back then, right? In the late 80s, right? She sold it after 1 year, made 90 G's, right? In 1 year, made 90,000. The thing is that I can't buy in, let's say, a Greektown. It's expensive. I can't buy Dundas and Broadview is very expensive. So everybody's sort of moving out. And then when I hit Hamilton, no, Hamilton's getting expensive. Your London's getting expensive, right? So you're pushing your boundaries out, right? I was talking. There's another conversation I had with another sort of person that I bumped into, and she actually said, you know what? Maybe I missed a boat on this. No, the boat. It looks different now. The boat is it's in a different location, right? You just have to find that boat. The boat may not be in the harbor that you want it to be. It's not in your Greektown. It's not in your Little Italy. It's not going to be maybe it's not in your London. Your peripherals are going to change, right? It's going to look a little different. So think about analyze your areas. There's always going to be profits. There's always going to be problems, right? It's how you manipulate it, right? Or how you go into it properly, right? There's a lot of I've run into so many problems. Right now we're doing some development right now, and there's issues and problems like everywhere. We're like problems, yeah. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, no, that was great, Kasey. And before we move on from that question, I'd love to just kind of, one, I can't help myself. I need to explain a little bit. And then two, I've got a follow-up question. So, with what Kasey's talking about in 2005 and moving into Hamilton, I personally see a very similar analogy or metaphor right now in the current market with people going to like Sudbury or going to Sault Ste. Marie or Thunder Bay. Again, you can absolutely make money in those markets. I'm not saying you can't make money, but there's a lot of people that are going in, not understanding the neighborhood they're buying in, not understanding the class of tenant that they're likely going to have to deal with, and they're likely not prepared or they haven't built the infrastructure to help them kind of navigate that. And so one thing that I'd love for you to just kind of shed some light on here, Kasey, a lot of people that went through what you went through, they quit. Like they just stopped there, right? Like they give up and they're like, I knew my parents were right. Real estate doesn't work, or my coworker was right. Yeah. This doesn't play out. So what gave you guys the confidence to hold strong and like hold out those 5 years and kind of see how those other investments played out? My
other properties.
Yeah.
Okay. So those were winners. So you keep your stars, right? And get rid of your dogs. So my 10plex, my 4 townhouses in Barrie, my triplex, they're amazing. So we're just cash flowing, and it was like, you know what, it works. So if I hit that at the very get-go, if I hit Hamilton, I said, you know what, let me do an 8plex, my 2 8plex and a 12plex at the get-go, it would have killed me. It would have said, you know what, I would have not get back in, like I would have gone back into real estate, or I would have taken a lot longer. But because my current holdings, and they were actually all personal, right? I held those, and it seemed like it has nothing to do with a JV or anything like that, but it just seems like, wow, it's like these are JV partners coming in, or JV or limited partnerships coming in, and I screwed up, right? So in the back of my mind is like, I gotta find a better location, and I gotta tighten up everything, right? Whatever I did before, I gotta do the same and better. So yeah, it's something that I looked at. And I said that I'm not just buying just purely on price. I'm not buying just purely on, the numbers, right? Or the location. It's like cheap is cheap. Like you buy what you get. Like you're getting something that's going to be rough. There's a lot of different maintenance that I can deal with, and the tenants the profile, like all the expenses, like all these sort of hit me all at once. And I was like, you know what? I stepped back, and after that 5 years, and then when I got my next property, it was amazing. And that was the Duke and Wellington property. I think it was, no, it was actually my Elgin property first, and that was mine. And then I sort of put all my money there. And then my Duke and Wellington is my next sort of my limited partnership that I got, that small little 12-plex. But if you hit a problem, you have to, like, I analyzed and I said, okay, this is what I'm doing wrong. What I'm going to do? What am I going to tighten up? Right. And it was the tenants and it was the contractors, and making sure that I run that shit really tight. And I'm not just writing checks to contractors or whatever. Like I never had really a problem with that, but I think I was too lax with that. Like I have to give timelines to contractors. I want it done now. Like 1 month, you have this unit or 3 units to do, and that's it. Right. If you're not done, I'm getting another contractor. Right. So they don't delay on me. Right. So those are the things that I really tightened up. Even for the tenants, like I got all of these, co-signers, things like that. So like they're gonna, if you don't get the right tenants, that's gonna kill you.
Absolutely. One thing that you've mentioned here, Kasey, is that the things that you do are just steps that you've taken to get there. So what I mean by that is you're self-made. Like this is not something that has been just handed to you. Like you've gone through all of these problems, and you've had all of these learnings in order to get to where you are. And that's what someone from the outside looking in won't always see right away. And one thing that I love that you really highlighted is that anyone can do this. It just you have to put in the effort and the work. And it's really fantastic that you've kind of taken that into your own hands to really ensure that not only did you not quit when you went through that 5-year stint, but you learned from it and just grew your business even bigger and better. And one thing that you also highlighted was just going out there and physically like sitting on the corner of the street to identify what that street actually looked like. And I think that that's what some investors just won't go to that same level of effort to do. And one thing that I think is really important to pull from that is like putting yourself in those shoes and putting yourself in those neighborhoods actually has allowed you to realize and learn from those mistakes. And actually now you're running your business in real estate like a business where you can actually vet those tenants in the right way. So from all of that, like where are you now? Like what types of projects are you now willing to take on, or what types of projects would you never take on again?
Okay, so good questions. We're looking at the prices per unit, or you do cap rates or anything like that, and it's quite expensive. Like we're probably looking at about 150 to 100 and probably 90,000 a unit in a KWC area, probably in London as well. I know, Matt, you're investing in London, and it's getting quite expensive. So we're looking at, hey, so if we can get a piece of land, what can, like I think we talked about it in some other YouTubes. We're looking at pieces of land that we can develop. So we just actually secured a piece of land over at Yonge and Steeles. Quite a prominent location. I actually live literally like a 2-minute drive.
That's what I was just thinking. That's very convenient.
Yeah, very convenient. So Yonge and Steeles. So what we're trying to do is that the price points are getting very high. So when you buy a unit, per unit price is like 150 to 190, or almost almost 200,000. How much would that be to buy land and develop, right? And it's almost the same price. It's not going to be exactly the same price, but the thing is that when you build, your operating costs will come down. We can go into the nitty-gritties on that later. But so instead of buying existing, it's coming to the point where, what's that threshold? So you're buying at 150 to 190. If I build, let's say I'm building at 150 to whatever, 300,000, right? And what's my rent's going to be like? So it's always going to be, you have that little gap, and if that gap sort of shrinks, you might want to get into the new builds, right? Actually buy a piece of land and build. So that's what we're doing right now, because we couldn't find anything at a price point that we're comfortable with So we're buying pieces of land, and then but these pieces of land has to be in high prominent location. So right now we're still working on Whitby. We've closed on a deal over at Canadian Steels. This is all during COVID. Canadian Steels is just recent. I think it was probably about 3 or 4 months ago. Jane and Teston, is right beside the hospital, Vaughn's new hospital, and that's literally like a street over near Canada's Wonderland. There's a hospital there, so we bought a piece of land right at the corner there as well. And then the newest acquisition is Young and Steels, and in this type of land development, there's a lot of vultures. So I'll go. That's a different. That it requires like Jed as well. It's like she's dealing with lawyers, and there's crooks. Like seriously, there's lenders that will lend to take. Right. That's another like. It's completely different. Like multifamily is simple. Seriously, it's so easy. You just buy it and you just rent it out. I don't know if you hear my daughter crying, but yeah, this is normal. Like this is like what we do. Like our business, there's always things happening. So kids are crying, whatever. Tenants aren't paying, contractors aren't working, or things like that. She just opened the door. See, this is normal. So I'm not going to hide it, right? I'm not going to say, hey, like, be quiet. No. This is, everybody has a life. Everybody, like, you hear this, right? Dealing with the land deal, I have people that will lend, that will take. I have other vultures, that real estate agents, that they're unscrupulous. They'll take it, right? So that's another story. But that's, to answer your question, Rebecca, what am I doing is that our existing portfolio is great. We're probably going to turn it into a REIT. We have other land. We're doing some land development with a developer as well. So he's on the team and just land development. And then hopefully we can build something to create something bigger. So we can see the progression that it's rolling along nicely. So these are honestly, they're probably going to be about 200 to 300 units per site. Some might be smaller, like the Whippy is going to be about 110, maybe 120. But these ones are pretty prominent. And we have there's a lot of government agency that wants to back us as well, and they want units. So we're sort of working with the right people, and people want to get on board. We have some JVs that I'm not going to say the name, but there's a prominent operator that wants units as well, right? So people are approaching us for these deals, and then our investors as well. So they're in the mix. They invested their money. They know that we're working with the multifamily. We're working with a land developer, and working with actually government people that want these units as well. They're actually willing to JV with us. So that's in a quick little nutshell. That's what we're doing.
Awesome.
Gotcha. Now, I do have a follow-up question here. So you made a really cool analogy earlier about kind of moving the ship to a new dock, and you've really done that in a way with this development. Is you've just taken your existing knowledge in real estate and business, and you're moving it into the development world. So how does one go about doing that? Like, what are the steps that you needed to take to actually transition your business?
Good question. That's actually not even me. That's the best part. It's a land developer. His name is Majid. So he's from Terrebonne Developments, and then it was actually my builder for my house. One of his I think good friends, and we started talking. He develops. He sort of gets density up for good locations and things like that. So that was sort of his history, and then we said that, hey, this might be a good partnership. He likes to do land development. And develop and build, apartment or condos. Like that's what he wants to get into. I think that's a different dock, right? I'm to be honest with you, I've never done it before, right? My core business in multifamily is really, to be honest, it's simple. It's kind of, you just buy it and it's like, I didn't do anything. I didn't construct this. I didn't do anything. I didn't pull any permits. I didn't do anything. I just basically say, hey, I'm going to buy it. I collect rent, I do renovations, things like that. Well, I don't physically do it. I get my contractors to do it, but my core business is easy. So even if we have 250 units, that's simple, right? Because it's something that you're jumping in right away. People are willing to pay you, right? So this new type of development, new dock, new surroundings, you don't want to do it yourself. Okay, if you don't have that experience, partner up with somebody. So we're partnering up with Majid. Jed's really good with the legal, the accounting part. We have a good accountant as well. So we have a lot of moving parts, right? And I'm not gonna say I'm the best at everything. I'm not, right? I'm actually not, to be honest with you, I'm not really good at anything, right? You don't have to be. That's great about this. Matt McKeever is probably not great. He hires people, right?
Yep.
You have to, right? In this type of business, Matt goes, okay, well, I need somebody in wholesaling. Get somebody to wholesale. You need somebody who does social media. Get somebody who's social media. I'm just good at overseeing these properties. I have an administrator in my office. I have people, I have superintendents, I have cleaners, but I can oversee that, right? Land development is completely different. It's a new beast that I don't want to take over, but the end result is great. If I can get more units, that's something that I want to add to our portfolio, right? So if you're not good at things, outsource them, right? You just have to oversee them and just oversee like a hawk, right? Like my partner in land development, he knows that profit and loss, he's going to bear the brunt of that, right? So we're tied together, right? Whatever type of business that you're doing, you let the people run, but you tie them up with the profit and the loss, right? They know. Like, I don't think we have to baby people, right? If they're on the same level, like his house is on the line, his whatever, like his income. So that's what we do, right? If you're in social media or you're in doing wholesaling, you want that to happen. You want these people to it's a commission base, or it's like sort of, I hate to say this analogy, but you kill what you eat, right? And Matt McKeever's like, kill the broccoli, right?
Hey, we still use that analogy, even though I'm vegan, so don't worry.
Yeah. So you kill what you eat, right? In a way that you want people, you want them to, you want the autonomous. You want people to be able to expand for you. The more that they get, right, the more that you'll get too, right? So that's sort of what we're doing. There's a lot of moving parts, but we see the landscape really changing. So let's go back to these prominent locations. As long as we have good, solid locations, these are the Canadian Steel, the Yonge and Steels, the Whitby, the Jane and Teston. They're going to hold its value. Okay. So after this pandemic, how I see it, we see it, Majid sees it, and Jed, we see this as the government's going to pump a lot of money into infrastructure, right? They're going to put a lot of money, you can see it, into transportation, into the subways. So in that sort of in where I live, the Yonge and Sheppard, Yonge and Steeles. So we'll say Yonge Sheppard, they can't develop anymore. They can't really go any higher on the west side. They developed as much as they could. Yonge and Finch are supposed to be in the main corridor as well, but Yonge and Finch, they can't go any deeper. It's because of the subway line. So it's not going to be a huge development core. There's a lot of condos. So Yonge and Sheppard, Yonge and Finch, but then the next major one is Yonge and Steeles. And Yonge and Steeles, there's a lot of, if some of your listeners listen to it, Yonge and Steeles, there's a lot of buildings coming in. There's going to be a huge core of transportation. Subway's going to be there. It's going to end there, and then there's going to be new Via or new GO train or something like that. So it's going to be a huge hub. They're talking about 50-story buildings and things like that. There's a Centerpoint Mall there that's going to be redeveloped. So that whole area, it's going to be transportation. It's going to be a mall. It's going to be a mall. It's going to be condos. So that's what you do, is that you know what's coming. If you can get your hands on it, on a piece of land there, that it's for the takings. Like you're going to profit from it. So what we're trying to do is that we're trying to maneuver so that once these developers start to develop, we have a piece of land we're going to develop too. So that's what we're looking at, just to build that portfolio and also to build that REIT as well. We talked about that. So in the pipeline, that's what we're doing. Existing properties, if we can find them, that's great. And then we're adding these new ones to the mix as well. So that's our, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kasey. And I think that, there's a misconception among a lot of, aspiring real estate investors or aspiring entrepreneurs where they think that you solve one problem and then you're kind of done. We're actually it's really just, we're solving a series of problems, right? And like yourself, whenever we get almost kind of too comfortable, we go searching for a new challenge or a new problem, right? So it's like, again, like, hey, multifamily, I can do this paint by numbers because, you've been doing it for decades now. And it's like, hey, it's time the market's kind of pushing us in a direction, but also I assume that you guys were probably also a little hungry for a new challenge or a new problem to solve.
Yeah. Hey, so when you talked about that, so new problems, these are problems, I don't want to go too deep into it, but buying a piece of land, I had a lender try to steal it. We're still finding a new lender. So Jed's dealing with that. So one of these locations, a lender lent, and he's looking at stealing the property. One of these locations, right? One of these, my existing properties, the back piece of land I sold to another developer, and we just gave the court documents to her, and we're taking her to court because she's supposed to do sort of fix-ups on my piece of land. So they're supposed to do the asphalt and things like that. Yeah, it was agreed upon. It was on the APS, and I was like, we took it to our lawyer at Miller Thompson, and he goes, you know what, this is pretty it's pretty compelling. It's there. Like, you shouldn't have a problem winning. So then we said, it's like Miller Thompson, they're a big law company, law firm, and we're probably going to win on that, and then hopefully we can get our legal costs paid. Usually you don't get full legal costs, but 60 or 70%, but we still have to do it, right? So every step that we take, it seems like there's other problems. So lenders taking, I have developers not paying, I have another person trying to sue us. So there's two legal, it's just crazy. What else? We're trying to raise money for some of these projects. Some investors bail, some investors come in. So we're trying to, bridge these, or it's true. You solve one problem and it seems like it hits you all over. So we have a whole bunch of stuff coming. It's like, I'm dealing with issues. Jed is dealing with issues because she has to deal with the lawyers. And then we have, you know what? You have to be very, very organized when you're dealing with property, with dealing with legal matter. You have to have somebody who's great at that. And Jed's great. So she's very organized. She's an accountant, and she wrote the, she should have been a lawyer as well. Like, she actually wrote the bar, or not the bar, or the entrance exam, the LSAT. She actually scored about, I think, 90% or something. So yeah, she's a smart girl. But when you solve one problem, you think it's done. You buy something else, and bang, there's like 10 problems, right? So yeah, it's fun, right? Crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, it definitely seems like you've, going back to that dock analogy, docked your ship at a new subset of problems, and now you're just learning how to field all of those problems. And, you mentioned something about running your business, and you're almost like the QB of it in a way, where putting out all of these fires and coordinating everything. So your job is really to field all of those problems and address all of them as you go through. So with all of these new problems arising, like, what helps you actually get through that when you're slammed with these 10 new problems? Because for the audience listening in, some new investors coming up might be slammed with a subset of new problems as they enter new markets, as they enter new types of buildings that they're investing in. So you going into this new area or niche, like, how do you field all of those problems coming in?
You have to you have to have good people, like the administrators, good lawyers, and things like that. And it's crucial because you can't do it all. What I normally do is I still oversee the buildings. We hired a good paralegal, so I can't get to all the hearings and stuff. And we were having issues before. I had issues with my administrators. So I went through I think it was 5 administrators until I got this really good administrator. But yeah, you have to get things off your plate, but if you do get things off your plate, know that, I hate to say this, but your employees are still your employees, right? Sometimes things will fall through the cracks or whatever, right? But you still have to watch over them, making sure that, things are done properly. Like, one of my previous administrator, she didn't, and leases wasn't done properly or wasn't even done at all, things like that. And for like, let's say my Elgin property, I lost tenants, right? This is a year ago, and then I had a scramble. So make sure that if you offload something to somebody else, you have checks and balances. You have to oversee them. You have to make sure that they're meeting the deadlines or doing the work properly, because it's really going to bite you. Because to be honest with you, most employees don't want to hustle, right? I'm not saying the ones that I have now, the ones I have now are great, but they're not you, right? So as an entrepreneur, they're going to affect your bottom line, right? And your bottom line, you eat last, okay? So your middle line, everybody's taking something off of that. You earn, let's say $1 million, bang, 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 bang. Somebody's taking that salary, expenses, contractors, flooring, painting, whatever. By the time you're done, is it even positive, right? So yes, it's good to have these people like do the work, but you have to oversee it. Like I had contractors that wouldn't finish the work properly, and then when they come in, the tenant says, okay, this is not done or that's not done, and then have to go back and get the contractor there and then have to pay again because I didn't oversee that. I went to another building. I was talking to Jed the other day. This is way back. This is probably about 8 years ago. This person, I was not consulting. He just asked as a friend, hey, can I get your help because something's wrong with this building? It was like literally like 4 hours away. 4 hours away. It's like 2 hours from London. We drove past London. It was crazy. And he bought this little 20-plex or something like that. And he hired, like, obviously he didn't want to oversee it. So he's hands-off landlord or whatever, right? So he hired the superintendent. And he goes at, this building is never full, right? It's a 20-unit building. It's like, it's just never full. I always have a couple units that's vacant, right? And I go to him, yo, dude, like, yeah, your superintendent's skimming that from you. He's skimming off the top, right? So we drove. I fell asleep. The guy was just driving because like he wanted my help, right? So I'm not driving, right? So anyways, 4 hours of driving, got there. I spoke to this gentleman. I go, it was point blank. I said, that unit's rented. I know for the fact that it's rented. Let me see it right now. And he goes, no, like, I can't let you see it. I'm like, what do you mean you can't let me see it? It's empty, right? Because on my sort of my ledger, I can see that it's empty. It's been empty for 4 months, right? He goes, oh no, I just rented it. Really, right? So I went to his face. I said, I want to see it, and he said, no, you can't, and LTB and all that stuff. He's gonna throw the book at me. I'm like, yo, it wasn't even my building. I was like, yo, but we're partners here. I just trying to make up a story. And I said, this person wants to see it. He's the owner, right? I'm his consultant, quote unquote, his consultant. So I went to his building, and he was skimming off the top of 2 units. Rent was cheap there. I think it was like $800 or $900, and plus the laundry. Laundry, I know that some people said, pay your superintendent with the laundry, right? Give them it. No, you don't, right? The reason being is that if you give somebody the laundry income, you lower the value of your building, right? If I have to refinance this building, if I have to sell this building, they want to see financials. So you just screwed yourself, right? Again, being lazy, you're not doing the best for your business. Don't be lazy, right? Go collect the money. If you don't trust anybody, do it yourself. If you trust somebody, get somebody else to do it, right? But cash will always go missing. So that's why this guy, he wanted me to just go and take a look. Losing 2 units out of the 20 units, plus laundry. So let's just say that's $1,600 or $1,800, right? Plus laundry, that's $2,000. Do the calculation on that, right? So entrepreneurs, if you're going to be lazy, you're going to get screwed, okay? If you're being lazy, people will pick your pocket, and your building won't be performing at its best, right? So if you're in this business, like I was working for the bank, and so TD Asset Management, CIBC Asset Management, Towers Perrin. Then I moved over to Brookfield, to Cap REIT, and then to 2 sort of boutique property management companies that I did condos for. Whenever I was working there, I was working above and beyond. So I worked 40 hours on the Friday nights, on the Saturdays and the Sundays. I was working, right? I will go and see the units, the renovated units. I'll collect the cash. I'll do this. I'll do that, right? So don't be lazy. So the thing is that if you're hardworking for just 5 or 10 years, this type of business will pay for itself. You understand? Some of your, like, I know you guys want to have that profit. You want to have that great income. It's not overnight. 5 years, 10 years, you guys will see the fruits of your labor. Like, we started in 2003. Now it's 2021. I'm 45 years old. I started when I was 28 years old. So it took me this long. We rented this house that we were living near Yonge and Finch, Yonge and Steeles area. I used to rent my basement out. I had basement tenants, right? And they were loud, right? I hated that, right? I'd sleep with earplugs. And literally it took us that long to save up, to make sure that we can build like a good foundation, build a house, and to be able to get there, right? But it's not overnight. I'm not very flashy. I don't drive a nice car, but you guys can all have, like, you can have that, right? But it does take that time. Just don't be lazy. And after that 5 or 10 years, seriously, if you get started in real estate, you guys will reap the benefits. Like, you guys have a great head start. So I sound like a father.
No, I appreciate it, Kasey. That was amazing. And I just wanted to reiterate that at the end of the day, as the entrepreneur, as the active investor, like, sole responsibility, ultimate responsibility does lie with us, right? No one's going to care more about your money or your investment than you will. So it's really important that people understand that day one. Yeah, this was amazing, Kasey. I really appreciate you taking the time to just chat with us. And before we wrap up, I do want to explore one last problem that I think that you're encountering or that you will encounter in the near future. And so this is absolutely a first world problem, and I'm sure you're going to do a good job of solving it. But, your story very much is self-made, right? Like, you came up, like, you really earned everything you've got. When you look towards, I know family is everything to you. When you look towards your children, how are you going to try and instill upon them the same sort of work ethic, the same sort of commitment to excellence that you've had throughout your life?
Yeah, we actually have this, like, we have this talk all the time, my wife and I. We want to be able to give something to our kids, but it's not going to be monetary. It's not going to be a house or anything like that. We've given them education, so they go to private school, which is very costly. But when they're done school, I'm not going to say, here's a set of keys, like Elijah, Kaylin, Corny, Chloe. Like, here it is, like a set of keys to a BMW or a Mercedes, or here's a house or something like that. No, you got to earn it. There's an old Chinese saying is that your wealth won't pass through the third generation. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
It's an old Chinese saying, is that, I don't know what they say. There's actually a saying in Chinese, and it won't. Like, I can see that happening because they weren't taught sort of the hardships. They weren't taught the business. They only see the fruits. So they're just going to spend. So the only people that I'm going to be teaching are my kids, right? So I'm going to teach them how to run a business, how to do it, what to do. Like, they count change or whatever. My daughter was, putting those little light panels or whatever. Like, she's only 13 years old, right? But when they get older and they're big enough, they can start doing something. But when the time comes that when they're old enough, when they graduated, I'm not going to give them something physical. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bag of cash. It's not a set of keys, right? They have to earn it. I will invest with them, right? And they have to make sure that they can profit from it, or they can lose from it, right? That's the only way for them to learn, right? If I give them anything, they're going to lose it. They're not going to have that sort of that ownership behind that, right? They're not learning from it. So I know some people say that, oh, I have this for my kids set aside for this, and I'm afraid that the housing market's going to be, it's going to be too hard. They're not going to be able to buy a house in the future. So I'll buy a house for them. Like, seriously, a lot of my, friends,
yeah, I know people like that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear that all the time. Like, these are our close friends. Like, we have like dinner together. I'm saying, I'm not giving anything to them, right? I've given you everything. I've given you good education. I've given you good ethics and things, to learn in school and out of school, right? And I don't think you need my money. If you need my money, I can lend it to you, right? So don't give too much to your kids. You want them to earn their keep, okay? You want them to be able to be self-sufficient, be able to land on their feet and go and sort of run with it, right? But giving them that head start, I think that here's a bag full of cash of here's $500,000, $1 million. I don't think it'll work. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Even my parents, if I said, hey, if I asked my father, I said at that time, in 2003, I said, hey, Dad, give me $50,000 to start. He would say, yes, of course. What Asian family? And then he would have to pay for it, right? But he wasn't actually in a financial situation. He gave me the $50,000. He actually lost his job or whatever, and he paid off his house. He went to Hong Kong to work for those 5 years or something like that, and then he paid off the mortgage, and then I had to pay for my tuition. But if I begged my dad, I'm sure he would, right? But for you guys out there, I think it's a sort of, I hate to say it's a cop out, or what's that word? It's like giving it to your kids. Like, I'm doing it for my kids. It's all for my kids. No, it's not. Do it for yourself. Maximize your income. All right. Teach them everything that they need to know how to run this business. If they're not going to do this type of business, I have a feeling my kids are not going to do this business. They can take that know-how, the knowledge, the experience, and do another business, right? But yeah, I'm not going my take is that I don't think that generational wealth, like people will say that, I've heard that before, generational wealth, but I think it's bullshit. To be honest with you, like Chinese saying is that after 3 generations, you're going to lose it anyways. So I don't think it's going to be generational. I think it's only 2 generations is the most. I'm going to teach my kids, but I'm not going to give it to them. I'll never give handouts to my kids. They have to learn. They have to learn, and they have to earn it. That's my thing.
Awesome. So, yeah, really appreciate it, Kasey. This was an amazing interview.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, Kasey, I want to thank you so much for coming on to this Problems or Profits episode. And where can people find you, Kasey?
Take a look at the website, kakoli.com. Reach out to Jed. We don't do any coaching. It's a lot of people. Seriously, that's a good business, but I'm not in that business, so we don't really coach. We just invest. Kakoli.com. Reach out to Jed. Jed at kakoli.com. We only deal with accredited investors right now, but we actually have a REIT coming along, so reach out to her. We're going to be rolling out a REIT soon. We have a whole bunch of projects happening in the city of Toronto, surrounding areas. Excuse me, and then we have our existing portfolio, and we're actually expanding as well. I just went to look at a property today in Kitchener, a 40 unit. But yeah, it's kakoli.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Kasey.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Problems are what? Problems are profits!